Hello guys, welcome to Movie Mind YouTube channel. Today, in this video, I am going to explain to you the full story of the Human Centipede movie. Let's take a look at the story of this movie without further delay. Movie starts and we see Professor Joseph Hyder, who is sitting in his Mercedes and is looking an image out. In that image, 3 canines stand in such a way that one is behind the other and the third is remaining standing behind them. On seeing this, a truck halts. Also, the truck driver is going towards the woodland for the toilet. Professor Joseph fires his firearm and targets him. We see two young ladies, one of them is Jenny and the other is Lindsay. The two of them belong to the US yet have come to Germany for an excursion. They had gone to the club to celebrate the party. Furthermore, Lindsay was accepting on the call about the party area. Albeit both used to travel, they had no particular thought regarding Germany. Both take leased vehicle and travel around evening time to the area of the party. The party's area was not known to them. Going through the wilderness, comes out very far and has become lost and stalls out in the issue. At the point when Jenny takes a U-turn of the vehicle and their vehicle's tire gets punctured. They attempt to call repairing service, however it is a woodland, so there is no signal on their mobile, and they get stuck on a main road that has no populace around it, aside from the side of the forest. The two of them decide to stay in the vehicle. Furthermore, ought to take help from anyone who passes from this road. Then a vehicle passes there and the two of them attempted to take help from him. An elderly person in this vehicle sees that both look alone and seeing them he attempts to verbally irritate. They are terrified excessively and lock the vehicle from inside. Then that car goes from there. Then, at that point, they find a home where they can call for help. It is late at night and they both walk towards the forest. Then, at that point, they notice a light radiating from a house. They both make their way toward this house. Then abruptly downpour begins vigorously. The two of them get exceptionally wet when they arrive at this house. They knock on the entryway and Professor Joseph emerges. They tell him their problem and tells him to call an emergency for a car repairman. Both are alone. The professor invites them in. There was a bizarre painting in the professor's home that she was looking at with her strange eyes. And that whole painting is quite disturbing. The professor then, at that point, asks them, are they travelers? What's more, one of them says that we are from New York and have come here to visit Germany. She again tells the professor to call the emergency call repairman, but the professor does not pay attention and ignores them. He then, at that point, inquires, are you family members? She answers, we are not family members, but rather we are friends. Then the professor gets up and goes to the kitchen to get some water. Also makes a fake call that Jenny and Lindsay think he might be calling the call repairman. Then, at that point, he blends a medication in the water which Lindsay drinks, but Jenny drops the glass. Seeing this, the professor treats them badly. Then he goes basement to clean the water. Going basement, he fills an injection. Then again, Lindsay was in a weak condition, on account of medication impacts. Be that as it may, Jenny doesn't. And she advises the professor to call once more, however he denies. Then he infuses a similar injection into the neck of Jenny and she has fainted out right away. Then, at that point, the professor is eating and Jenny and Lindsay wind up in the professor's lab. They realize that they are tied to the bed. In addition to these two, there is a man who is also incarcerated, and he is the truck driver. The professor needs to enter the lab and notifies the man which he does not compliment and that it is time for someone like him to die. Then he infuses a toxin into his arteries and dies as soon as if he then covered the body of the driver in his garden. The professor then utilizes his sedation portion to convey a man oblivious. He's from Japan, and he's sharing a bed with Jenny and Lindsay. They all woke up and begin shouting since they didn't have the foggiest idea how the professor would treat them. He comes forward to clear their confusion and introduces himself as the Professor Joseph, and he is a retired surgeon. He was a mad doctor. One of its weirdest professions was stitching living things. Not long ago, he performed the medical procedure with 3 canines behind one another. And that mad doctor was going to perform the same operation on Jenny, Lindsay, and Japan because their skin tissue matches. He was also telling them about the operation details. He first takes out their knee tendons, and finish them completely so that cannot stand. He will connect subject B to the rear of subject A and furthermore subject C to the posterior of subject B. He will remove the skin of their hip and put the skin of their jaw there. What's more, interface the three as found in the chart. In this way, when the subject A eats a food, its waste material will go into the mouth of subject B, and it likewise will go into the mouth of subject C. It is obvious that this process is quite cheaper and disgusting and no normal person can do it. Since this doctor is insane and he gets a kick out of the chance to do messy investigations. It is his first experience with the human body. First of all, he infuses a lazy infusion to the Japanese man that causes him in an oblivious state. Jenny is shouting boisterously and the professor attempts to give a similar injection to her too. Meanwhile, Lindsay opens the rope with her teeth and runs away. She has drip needles in her hand which is pulling her skin and cause bleeding. She goes to a room and shuts its entryway, however professor shows up there and break the window of that room. Lindsay likewise takes off from that point and falls into a pool. The professor likewise comes there and covers all pool with a lid. Then unexpectedly power gets off. Aching darkness's benefit, Lindsay runs away. She goes to the professor's lab and opens the rope of her friend Jenny, who is oblivious because of the infusion. She hauls Jenny from that point and brings her outside, yet professor likewise comes there. He also gave her the same injection, and Lindsay is now unconscious as well. Then he picks the two of them and brings to the lab. Then he begins the activity. First, he draws out the subject's tendons and teeth. Then he utilizes the marker to check their body. Then, at that point, eliminates their hip and face skins, and does quite a while activity. Then a couple of days after the fact the professor is displayed while drinking. Also, before him, his human centipede is put on the ground. Their injuries are not yet recuperated and the professor attempts to compel them to stand up together. They are connected in this way that at the forefront is the Japanese man. The middle is Lindsay and at the most end is Jenny. Jenny is at the end and she is considered as the tail of the centipede. They are feeling torment yet professor makes a photo by standing them effectively. Then he shows them a mirror and they expressed continually crying by watching their condition. He keeps them in the cage and acts like creatures. And this thing goes on and on for many days. He forces Japanese men to eat like canines. Professor again breaks the Japanese man's jaws. Then we see that the professor is treating them very badly and take them outside. Then the Japanese need to go to the toilet. On rejection, his human waste goes into the mouth of Lindsay. Lindsay has to swallow it. It was a dirty process in viewing even in thinking as well. Professor checks their medical condition, which shows that Japanese is fine but Lindsay has constipation because she is not digesting the human waste of this man. On the other hand, Jenny is not receiving any food or power source for her body, because she did not eat anything and getting weaker. Her wounds are still fresh and she seems to be dying soon. Professor thinks to relocate Jenny. Meanwhile, a sudden knock on the door appears and we see two police officers. The police come there to find Jenny and Lindsay. They disappeared for many days. Their car was at distance from the professor's house. The professor tells them he is a doctor and he is so busy that he has no time to go out. He doesn't know anything about those girls. The professor asks them to drink. They say we will have coffee. He says no, you will only get water. On it, the police officers suspect him. And the professor was taking water while mixing drugs in it. The officer tells him someone has listened to the voice of the disappeared girls from his house. And we have found your Mercedes from the truck whose driver's missing for many days. Hearing it, he shouts and asks them to drink water. They throw the glass. Making an excuse for the towel, he goes to take the injection, from which he can make them faint. But this time he was exposed in front of the police officers. In his explanation, he says you can't tease anyone without any reason. You can't blame me without any warrant. They move to take their warrant. The professor comes to his lab and he doesn't see his human centipede there. Because they hide. They stab a surgical knife in his belly. He falls as a result of it. The Japanese man cuts the neck of the professor and its mass comes in his mouth. Then they try to go upstairs. Because they were weak and were operated so they can't go upstairs. Their stitching area was bleeding. They climb up the stairs, but the professor comes behind them. He starts licking their blood from the stairs. The Japanese break the mirror and the doctor also arrives there. The Japanese sever his neck with the glass, and he dies as a result. Meanwhile, those police officers also reach there. But they didn't see anyone. They go to his lab, there was also none. The police officer feels intoxicated because of the drug that he gave him in the water. When the other officer searches, he finds them, but their condition was worse. The officer goes to the professor to hold him. He was sitting at a pool. His companion police officer was also killed. Then he shoots the other police officer with the pistol of the police officer. In return, the police officer also shoots Professor Joseph. They both die and there wasn't anything left except for the centipede made by Dr. Joseph. It was a cheap experiment of a mad doctor. This is how the movie ends. For such an interesting movie explanation, please subscribe to my channel and activate the bell next to it. Also, if you like this video, don't forget to like and comment. Thanks for watching. See you later in the video.